Commander Zekthai stood 7 feet tall on the bridge of the warship Crimson Honor. His dark green scales caught the red light from the control panels. Each scale was a mark of pride, earned through 17 major battles across the galaxy. The Valorian Empire had never produced a finer warrior. The message from High Command still glowed on his personal screen. New orders. The Devourers had been spotted near the mining colony of Zerion 7. These creatures had destroyed 12 different worlds in the past 5 years. They ate everything living and left nothing behind but empty rock. Zekthai had fought many enemies. The acid-spitting Krell, the energy beings from the Void Sector, the robot armies of the fallen Mechanic Empire. He had won every time. The Valorian way of war was perfect. Honor, discipline, and superior plasma weapons always brought victory. But this new order contained something that made his tail twitch with anger. The Galactic Council was sending reinforcements. Human reinforcements. Humans, he said the word like it tasted bad. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Varesh, looked up from her station. "Sir, did you say humans?" she asked. "Yes. The Council thinks we need help from these newcomers." Zekthai's claws made small scratches on his command chair. They discovered this species only 3 years ago. They come from some tiny system near the edge of our space, and now the Council thinks they can help us fight the Devourers. Varesh looked confused. "But sir, what could they possibly offer?" "Our intelligence reports say they are very small. No natural armor, no claws or fangs. Their weapons use simple metal projectiles instead of plasma energy." "Exactly." Zekthai brought up the human data files on the main screen. The bridge crew gathered around to look. "Look at them. They are barely 5.5 feet tall on average. Their skin is soft and easily damaged. They have no built-in weapons at all. Their technology is hundreds of years behind ours." The images showed humans in their basic military gear, simple metal and fabric armor, weapons that fired small pieces of metal, vehicles that moved on wheels instead of hovering above the ground. Everything about them looked primitive. Perhaps the Council thinks they can serve as cannon fodder, suggested Varesh carefully. Zekthai shook his massive head. "The message says they are to fight alongside us as equals." Equals. A species that has never faced anything more dangerous than their own planet's wildlife. The communications officer spoke up. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human transport ship. They request permission to dock." "Already here," Zekthai muttered. "Very well. Grant them docking bay 7, the smallest one." 20 minutes later, Zekthai walked to the docking bay to meet these humans. He wore his full ceremonial armor, decorated with the battle honors from all 17 campaigns. His plasma rifle hung at his side, its energy cell glowing with deadly power. Everything about his appearance was designed to show these newcomers exactly who they were dealing with. The human transport ship was smaller than he expected. It looked like a simple metal box with engines attached. No artistic design, no intimidating weapons visible on the hull, just function over form like everything else human. The airlock opened and the humans came out. Zekthai had seen the pictures, but meeting them in person was even more disappointing. The first human was a female with short black hair. She wore simple green clothing with metal plates attached. Her weapon was a basic rifle that looked like it belonged in a museum. The small metal name tag on her chest read Chen. "Commander Zekthai?" she asked, walking forward with an easy smile. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen, commanding the 3rd Marine Battalion. Thank you for having us aboard your ship." Her casual tone surprised him. She spoke to him like they were equals, not like she was addressing one of the galaxy's most famous warriors. Behind her, other humans were unloading equipment. They talked and laughed among themselves like they were going on a camping trip instead of a deadly mission. "Captain Chen," Zekthai replied stiffly, "I am surprised the Council sent so few of you. I count only 40 soldiers. 42, actually," Chen corrected with that same easy smile. "And that's all we need for this mission. We've studied the Devourer attack patterns. 42 Marines should be more than enough to support your battalion." "Support?" Zekthai's eye ridges rose. This tiny human thought her few dozen primitives would support his 300 elite Valorian warriors. "I see. And what experience do your people have fighting the Devourers?" "None yet," Chen admitted. "But we've fought plenty of other things. Bugs mostly. Big ones, small ones, smart ones, dumb ones. Usually works out fine in the end." She said it so casually that Zekthai wondered if she understood what they were facing. "Captain, the Devourers have destroyed entire civilizations. They are not simply large insects. They coordinate their attacks with perfect precision. They use acid weapons that can melt through Valorian armor. They reproduce rapidly and adapt to any tactics used against them. Sounds challenging, Chen nodded. My people like challenges. Behind her, a human soldier was examining a Valorian plasma rifle with obvious interest. Hey, Captain, he called out. Think they'd let us try one of these energy guns? Focus, Rodriguez, Chen called back. You can play with alien tech later. The human named Rodriguez grinned and went back to unloading boxes. Zekthai noticed that all the humans seemed relaxed and friendly. They showed no signs of pre-battle nerves or proper military discipline. Some were actually singing while they worked. Your soldiers seem informal, Zekthai observed. They're good people, Chen replied. Been through a lot together. We keep things loose until it's time to get serious. And when do you get serious? Chen's smile changed slightly. For just a moment, something cold flickered in her eyes. When things start shooting at us, Zekthai decided to test these humans. Captain, I should inform you about Valorian battle doctrine. We believe in honorable combat. We face our enemies directly with courage and discipline. We do not retreat from any fight. We win through superior skill and technology. Sounds good to me, Chen replied. We've got our own way of doing things, but I'm sure we can work together just fine. And what is the human way of doing things? Chen thought for a moment. We do whatever it takes to win. Something about the way she said those words made Zekthai pause. There was no boasting in her voice, no pride or anger, just a simple statement of fact. I will have my officers brief you on the mission parameters, he said finally. Appreciated. My people will be ready to deploy in 6 hours. As the humans continued unloading their equipment, Zekthai watched them carefully. Their gear was indeed primitive by galactic standards. Basic rifles, simple explosives, medical supplies that looked ancient. But everything was clean and well maintained. These humans might be primitive, but they were professional primitives. Later that evening, Zekthai reviewed the mission files in his quarters. Xerion 7 was a small mining colony with about 3,000 civilians. Devourer scouts had been detected in the underground tunnels. Intelligence suggested a small hive was forming. It should be a simple operation. Land, find the hive, destroy it with plasma fire, evacuate the colonists. His Valorian warriors had done this kind of mission dozens of times. The humans would probably be useful for carrying supplies or guarding the transport ships. Let them see how real warriors fought. Maybe they would learn something. Zekthai settled into his sleeping alcove, confident in tomorrow's victory. After all, he had never lost a battle. These devourers would be no different from any other enemy. He had no idea that by this time tomorrow, everything he believed about war would be completely destroyed. The morning air on Xerion 7 was thick with dust and the smell of metal. Zekthai stood on a rocky hill overlooking the mining colony, watching his Valorian warriors take their positions. 300 of the galaxy's finest soldiers moved with perfect discipline across the brown landscape. Each warrior wore gleaming armor that could stop most weapons in the galaxy. Their plasma rifles hummed with deadly energy. They formed precise battle lines exactly as taught in the military academies. This was how civilized beings fought wars. Captain Chen and her humans spread out nearby. Zekthai noticed they did not form neat lines like his warriors. Instead, they scattered across the rocks in small groups, finding cover behind boulders and metal debris. Their simple clothing made them hard to see against the dusty ground. Sloppy formation, muttered Lieutenant Varesh as she watched the humans through her optical scope. Zekthai agreed. The humans looked like they were hiding instead of preparing for honorable battle. They will learn proper tactics by watching us, he said confidently. The colony below was quiet. Too quiet. Scanning equipment showed life signs in the underground tunnels, but nothing moved on the surface. The 3,000 miners and their families had been evacuated 2 days ago, leaving only empty buildings and mining equipment. Movement detected, reported the sensor operator. Multiple contacts emerging from tunnel entrance 7. Zekthai raised his optical scope and looked where the operator pointed. Dark shapes were climbing out of a large tunnel opening near the center of the colony. Even from this distance, he could see the distinctive six-limbed shape of Devourer scouts. First wave, he announced over the communication system. All units prepare for contact. The Devourers moved like insects, which made sense because that is basically what they were. Each one was about the size of a small vehicle, with 6 legs ending in razor-sharp claws. Their heads held massive jaws filled with teeth designed for tearing through metal and flesh. Acid dripped from specialized glands along their sides. Zekthai had studied these creatures for years. They were dangerous, but they followed predictable patterns. The scouts would spread out to gather information. Then they would signal for the main force. Standard Valorian tactics called for eliminating the scouts quickly before they could report back to the hive. "All warriors, open fire on my command," Zekthai ordered. He watched through his scope as more devourers emerged from the tunnel. 20 of them now spreading across the colony buildings. "Fire!" 300 plasma rifles discharged at the same time. Bright blue energy beams cut through the morning air and struck the devourers with devastating effect. The creatures had thick armor-like shells, but Valorian plasma could melt through almost anything. Most of the devourers died in the first volley. The few survivors scattered for cover, moving with the quick insect-like motions that made them so dangerous in close combat. But they were too far away to threaten the Valorian position. "Second volley, finish them off," Zekthai commanded. The remaining devourers fell to the concentrated plasma fire. Smoke rose from their burning bodies. The entire engagement had lasted less than 30 seconds. "Excellent work," Zekthai announced to his warriors. "Maintain positions and watch for additional contacts." He looked over at the human position, expecting to see impressed faces. Instead, Captain Chen was talking quietly into her communication device, while her soldiers continued watching the colony through their simple optical scopes. "Impressive shooting." "Commander?" Chen said when she noticed him looking. "Very clean and efficient." "Standard Valorian tactics," Zekthai replied with pride. "Overwhelming firepower applied at maximum range." The Devourers never had a chance to close distance or coordinate a response. "Makes sense," Chen nodded. "Though I'm guessing that was just the warm-up." Before Zekthai could ask what she meant, the ground began to shake. Not a small tremor, but a deep rumbling that made loose rocks bounce and roll down the hills. "Multiple contacts," the sensor operator called out urgently. "Massive movement underground." The rumbling grew stronger. Then the tunnels all around the colony began to erupt. Devourers poured out of the ground like water from a broken dam. Not 20 this time. Not 50. Hundreds of them, climbing over each other in their rush to reach the surface. The tunnel entrance that had produced the first scout split open wider as something much larger began to emerge. "By the ancestors," whispered Varesh. Devourer warrior pushed its way out of the expanded tunnel. These creatures were 3 times the size of the scouts, with thicker armor and acid glands that could spray their burning liquid over long distances. Behind it came another warrior, then another. Zekathai's tactical computer was having trouble counting all the contacts. The colony was now swarming with devourers of all sizes. They moved in perfect coordination despite their numbers, forming attack groups and spreading out to surround the hill where the Allied forces waited. "All warriors, continuous fire," Zekthai shouted. "Do not let them organize." Plasma fire rained down on the devourer swarm. Many creatures fell, but many more kept coming. The ones in front used their bodies to shield the ones behind, accepting death to protect the advance. It was typical devourer tactics, but Zekthai had never seen it on this scale before. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "I'm reading at least 600 contacts and the number is still climbing. 600 devourers against 300 Valorian warriors. Still manageable but concerning." Zekthai began calling for orbital support when something impossible happened. The devourers stopped advancing. The entire swarm simply froze in place, as if they had received some silent command. Even the ones that were dying stopped moving. The sudden silence was more frightening than all their previous activity. "What are they doing?" Farash asked nervously. Zekthai studied the motionless creatures through his scope. In all his years of fighting, he had never seen devourers hesitate during an attack. They were known for their relentless aggression, their willingness to sacrifice any number of their own to reach their enemy. "Unknown," he admitted. "Maintain fire discipline. Do not waste energy on stationary targets." Captain Chen moved up beside him, looking down at the colony through her own simple binoculars. "They're listening," she said quietly. "Listening to what?" "Something big coming up from deep underground. My people have good ears. We can hear it moving down there." Zekthai adjusted his audio sensors and immediately understood what she meant. A deep rhythmic sound was coming from far below the colony. Something massive was climbing toward the surface. The sound grew louder. The ground shaking increased. Small avalanches of loose rock began sliding down the hills around them. Then the central mining platform, a structure the size of a city block, exploded upward in a shower of metal and stone. What emerged from the wreckage was the largest living creature Zekthai had ever seen. A devourer queen, easily the size of a warship with armor so thick it looked like black metal. Dozens of smaller creatures clung to its sides, not just warriors, but specialized forms Zekthai had only read about in intelligence reports. The queen opened her massive jaws and released a sound that was part roar and part psychic scream. Every devourer in the colony responded instantly, turning toward the hill and beginning their advance. All warriors, focus fire on the queen, Zekthai commanded. Bring it down before it can coordinate the attack. Concentrated plasma fire struck the queen's armored hide. The energy beams that could melt through starship hulls barely scratched her surface. She shrugged off the attack and began moving toward their position with surprising speed for something so large. This is bad, Zekthai muttered to himself. In 17 battles, he had never faced anything that could ignore Valorian plasma fire. Commander, Captain Chen said calmly, you might want to pull your people back about 50 meters. Retreat? Valorian warriors do not retreat. Not retreat. Tactical repositioning. Trust me on this one. Something in her voice made Zekthai look at her more carefully. The casual, friendly human from yesterday was gone. Captain Chen now looked like a predator studying prey. Her eyes were cold and calculating. My warriors do not abandon their positions, Zekthai said firmly. Chen nodded. Your choice. Rodriguez! Yes, ma'am. Light them up. The human named Rodriguez smiled and pressed a button on a small device in his hand. The colony exploded. Not just one explosion, but dozens of them, chained together in a sequence that turned the entire mining facility into a series of devastating fireballs. Buildings collapsed. Mining equipment flew through the air in burning pieces. Even the massive queen staggered as the ground beneath her feet turned into a crater. Hundreds of devourers died in the explosions. The survivors were scattered and confused, their perfect coordination broken by the unexpected attack. When did you? Zekthai began. Last night, Chen replied, still watching the destruction through her binoculars. My people are very good at sneaking around in the dark. We placed charges on every major structure, plus a few surprises in the tunnel entrances. As if summoned by her words, more explosions erupted from the tunnels around the colony. Smoke and fire poured out of the underground passages as the carefully placed charges collapsed key sections of the Devourer tunnel network. Okay, people, Chen announced to her soldiers. Time to get serious. The humans rose from their concealed positions and began moving down the hill toward the Devis Zekthai, watched in disbelief as the humans moved down the hill toward the burning colony. They were singing something in their native language, a slow, rhythmic chant that somehow made the hair on his neck stand up. Even through the translation devices, he could tell it was old. Very old. Should we advance with them? Lieutenant Varesh asked uncertainly. Zekthai hesitated. Valorian doctrine called for maintaining superior firing positions until the enemy was weakened, but the humans were moving into a kill zone where hundreds of angry devourers were still very much alive. Maintain position, he decided. Provide covering fire as needed. The first group of humans reached the edge of the colony ruins. Immediately, devourers began emerging from the rubble. The creatures were wounded and disorganized but still deadly. A warrior-class devourer charged at 3 humans who had taken cover behind a destroyed building. Zekthai expected to see the humans retreat or call for support. Instead, something impossible happened. Private Rodriguez, the same human who had been joking about alien technology yesterday, ran directly at the charging devourer. The creature was 3 times his size and covered in armor that could stop most weapons. Rodriguez was carrying only his simple kinetic rifle and a bag of what looked like primitive explosives. The devourer's acid spray missed Rodriguez by inches, melting the ground where he had been standing. Rodriguez rolled under the creature's slashing claws and attached his explosive bag to its underside. Then he kept running. The explosion tore the devourer apart. Rodriguez emerged from the smoke cloud, bleeding from several cuts but still moving. He rejoined his squad and immediately began preparing for the next attack. Tactical suicide, Varesh observed. He should have died. But Zekthai was beginning to understand that the humans did not think about death the same way other species did. When a group of Scout-class devourers surrounded Sergeant Williams and her team, the humans did not panic or call for extraction. Instead, Williams calmly spoke into her communication device. Fire mission, coordinate 7742. Danger close, Zekthai repeated. In military terminology, that meant artillery fire so near to friendly forces that they would likely be killed by their own weapons. Seconds later, shells began falling from orbit. Not the precise plasma strikes that Valorian ships used, but crude explosive rounds that turned everything in a wide area into flying debris. The Devourers died in the bombardment. So did Sergeant Williams and 2 of her soldiers. The surviving humans collected the identification tags from their dead companions and continued advancing. No mourning, no pause to honor the fallen. They simply absorbed the losses and kept moving. This is not how civilized beings conduct warfare, Zekthai muttered. Captain Chen's voice came over the communication channel. Commander, we're going to need your people to move up and support the left flank. We've got something big coming out of Tunnel Complex 4. Zekthai looked through his scope and saw what she meant. Another queen was emerging from a partially collapsed tunnel, smaller than the first one but still massive. Its armor showed damage from the explosions, but it was very much alive and very angry. All warriors advanced to secondary positions, Zekthai ordered. It went against his tactical instincts to leave the high ground, but the humans were clearly insane enough to need protection. As his Valorian warriors moved down the hill in perfect formation, Zekthai got a closer look at how the humans fought. What he saw challenged everything he thought he knew about combat. A human medic was treating wounded soldiers behind a pile of rubble. When Devourers attacked the position, the medic did not hide or call for help. Instead, she grabbed a rifle and began shooting while continuing to work on her patient. When her rifle ran out of ammunition, she used her medical tools as weapons. Zekthai watched her kill a Scout-class Devourer by injecting it with something from her medical bag. The creature convulsed and died within seconds. Later, he learned she had used pure anesthesia as a poison. Another human, barely old enough to be a soldier, found himself alone when his squad was overrun. Instead of surrendering or hiding, he began dismantling his own equipment. Zekthai realized the young human was building a bomb from spare parts. The improvised explosive took out 6 Devourers when they tried to enter the building where the human had taken refuge. The blast also brought down half the structure. The human died in the collapse, but his sacrifice allowed other human units to advance past that position. They used their own deaths as weapons, Zekthai said in amazement. Sir, Varish looked confused. The humans, they do not try to avoid death. They use it as a tactical advantage. This became more obvious as the battle continued. When a human squad became surrounded, they did not fight to escape. Instead, they fought to cause maximum damage before dying. When human equipment failed, they immediately began looking for ways to turn the failure into a weapon against the enemy. A human heavy gunner's weapon jammed during a critical moment. Instead of taking cover to fix it, he removed the power cell and threw it into a group of approaching Devourers. The energy explosion killed 4 creatures and wounded several others. Captain Chen appeared beside Zekthai's position, moving through the chaos like she was taking a casual walk. Her armor was torn and she was bleeding from a cut on her forehead, but she seemed completely calm. Your warriors fight well, she said, watching Valorian plasma fire cut down a group of Devourers. Very disciplined. Your people fight like madmen, Zekthai replied honestly. Chen smiled. Thank you. That's actually a compliment where we come from. How can suicide be a compliment? It's not suicide if it works, Chen said simply. And it usually works. A communication signal interrupted their conversation. One of Chen's squad leaders was reporting from deeper in the colony. Captain, we found the main hive complex. It's bigger than expected, maybe 3 times bigger than intelligence estimated. Survivors? Chen asked. Negative. The colonists are all dead. But Captain, there's something else. The Devourers have been using the human bodies to breed new warrior-class units. We're looking at maybe 2,000 fresh contacts. Zekthai felt his blood turn cold. 2,000 Devourers plus whatever was left from the original swarm. Against his 300 warriors and whatever humans were still alive. Recommendation? Chen asked calmly. We can't fight our way through this many contacts. Request immediate orbital bombardment of the entire colony. Negative, Chen replied. We've got people scattered all through the target zone. Orbital bombardment would kill our own forces. Ma'am, with respect, we're probably dead anyway. At least orbital bombardment would complete the mission. Zekthai stared at the human captain. Her subordinate was recommending killing their own people to ensure mission success, and she was considering it seriously. "Give me 5 minutes," Chen said finally. "I want to try something first." She switched to a different communication channel. "All human units, this is Overlord. We are implementing Protocol 7. The response was immediate. Every human voice on the communication network responded with the same phrase. "Protocol 7 confirmed." "See you in hell." "What is Protocol 7? Zekthai asked. Chen's friendly expression disappeared completely. For a moment she looked like something from a nightmare. "Total war, Commander. No prisoners, no mercy, no retreat. We fight until every enemy is dead or we are. That is suicide. Maybe. But it's also victory, because Devourers can't adapt to dead enemies." Captain Chen began issuing orders that made no tactical sense to Zekthai. Human squads were told to abandon defensive positions and advance directly into the strongest enemy concentrations. Teams were ordered to use all their explosives immediately, regardless of whether they could escape the blast radius. Medical personnel were instructed to use their supplies as chemical weapons. "Commander," Chen said as she prepared to rejoin her troops, "you might want to pull your people back to the hilltop. What happens next is going to get messy. My warriors do not abandon allies. Then make sure they understand what they're about to see. Humans don't fight wars to survive them. We fight them to make sure nobody else survives them either." As Chen disappeared back into the battle, Zekthai began to understand the truth about these small, soft creatures from the edge of space. They were not primitive. They were not weak. They were something far more dangerous than any enemy he had ever faced. They were completely insane, and they had weaponized their insanity. The sound of human singing grew louder as more voices joined the ancient battle hymn. But now Zekthai could hear what they were really singing about. It was not a song of victory or glory, it was a song about dying well. The ground shook again, but this time it was not from underground movement. Something massive was descending from orbit. Zekthai looked up to see a Devourer bioship breaking through the atmosphere, its living hull pulsing with organic weapons. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a small city. Thousands of smaller craft swarmed around it like insects around a hive. As Zekthai watched in horror, transport pods began launching from the bioship toward the colony. "Galactic Command to all units," came the urgent transmission. "We are detecting massive Devourer reinforcements. Recommend immediate withdrawal to minimum safe distance." Captain Chen's voice cut across the communication channel. "Negative, Command. We are not withdrawing. Captain, you are facing impossible odds. Sensor readings show over 10,000 enemy contacts incoming." "Understood, Command. Requesting permission to implement Protocol 7. There was a long pause before the Galactic Command responded. "Captain Chen, Protocol 7 has never been authorized for use against the Devourers. The collateral damage estimates are—" "Command, this is not a request," Chen interrupted. "I am informing you that Protocol 7 is now in effect. All human units have confirmed compliance." Another pause. "Captain, please clarify what Protocol 7 entails." Chen's reply was cold as space. "Total sterilization of the operational area. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence. Complete extinction of all hostile forces regardless of cost." Zekthai felt something he had never experienced in 17 battles. Raw terror. Not fear of the enemy, but fear of his allies. "Human command. Be advised that Valorian forces are still in the operational area," he transmitted quickly. "Commander Zekthai," came Chen's voice, "you have approximately 10 minutes to withdraw your people to minimum safe distance. After that, I cannot guarantee their survival. We do not abandon the battlefield. Then your people are about to learn why the galaxy fears humanity." The first Devourer transport pods crashed into the colony ruins. Immediately, fresh swarms of creatures began pouring out. These were not the disorganized survivors from the morning attack. These were rested, coordinated, and hungry for revenge, but the humans were ready for them. As the new Devourers advanced, they triggered devices the humans had placed throughout the colony. But these were not simple explosives. Zekthai watched in fascination and horror as the humans demonstrated technologies that violated several galactic convention treaties. A group of Devourers entered a building that looked empty. Seconds later, the structure filled with some kind of gas that caused the creatures to begin dissolving from the inside out. Their acid blood, normally their greatest weapon, turned against them as the human chemical agent converted it into a more aggressive compound. "Biological weapons," Varesh whispered. Those are banned by the Galactic Accords. So is using medical supplies as poison, Zekthai replied, remembering the human medic from earlier. I do not think these humans care about our treaties. Another human trap revealed itself when a squad of Devourer warriors stepped on what looked like normal ground. The soil beneath them turned out to be a thin layer covering a pit, filled with sharpened metal spikes coated in some kind of toxin. The creatures that fell into the trap died within minutes, their nervous system shutting down. Primitive, Varesh observed, but effective. The most disturbing human tactic was how they used captured Devourer bioweapons. Somehow the humans had learned to extract the acid glands from dead Devourers and turn them into area denial weapons. They spread the acid across key choke points, creating barriers that even living Devourers could not cross, but it was the human use of their own people as weapons that truly horrified Zekthai. He watched through his scope as a human engineer named Patterson became surrounded by a dozen Devourer scouts. Instead of fighting or hiding, Patterson began rapidly connecting cables between his portable power generator and the metal framework of a partially destroyed building. Patterson, get out of there, Chen's voice commanded over the radio. Negative, Captain. I can take out the whole swarm if I overload the generator. That will kill you too. I know. Patterson's voice was calm. Tell my wife I got the big ones. The explosion turned 3 city blocks into an electrical storm that cooked everything made of metal or flesh. Patterson died instantly, but so did every Devourer in the area. Chen's voice came over the radio immediately. All units, Patterson's sacrifice has cleared the southern approach. Advance through the gap. No warning. No pause. The humans simply used their companion's death as a tactical opportunity and kept fighting. More Devourer transport pods were landing every minute. The bioship above was now close enough that Zekthai could see individual weapon ports opening along its hull. Soon it would begin bombardment of the surface. Captain Chen, he transmitted, that bioship will destroy everything on the surface once it achieves optimal firing position. I know, came her reply. Williams, how are we doing with the surprise package? Almost ready, Captain. Just need 3 more minutes to complete the connections. Zekthai had no idea what surprise package they were discussing, but he was beginning to understand that humans planned for scenarios that other species considered impossible. The Devourer bioship reached optimal position and began its bombardment. Organic projectiles the size of vehicles struck the colony, releasing clouds of digestive enzymes designed to break down any living matter. Where the projectiles hit, the ground itself began to dissolve. Several human positions were completely destroyed. Zekthai expected the survivors to retreat or call for evacuation. Instead, they advanced into the areas where the bioweapons had been deployed. Are they insane? Varesh asked in disbelief. Those areas are completely contaminated. Through his scope, Zekthai watched human soldiers moving through the contaminated zones wearing nothing but basic protective gear. They collected samples of the Devourer bioweapons and immediately began using them against their creators. One human squad used captured digestive enzymes to collapse a tunnel entrance, trapping dozens of Devourers underground. Another team spread the bioweapons across the landing zones where more transport pods were trying to deploy, turning the Devourers' own landing sites into death traps. They are not insane, Zekthai realized aloud. They are adaptive. They use everything as a weapon, including their enemies' weapons. Captain Chen's voice came over the radio again. All units, Williams has confirmed the package is ready. Implementing final phase of Protocol 7. All personnel, you have 60 seconds to reach minimum safe distance. What is the package? Zekthai demanded. Commander, remember when I told you that humans don't fight wars to survive them? Chen's voice was almost cheerful now. Well, this is what that looks like. The entire colony mining platform began to rise into the air. At first, Zekthai thought he was seeing some kind of anti-gravity technology. Then he realized the truth. The humans had somehow turned the entire mining facility into a massive projectile weapon. They weaponized the colony, he whispered in amazement. The platform, with all its mining equipment, storage facilities, and thousands of tons of metal and rock, was accelerating upward toward the Devourer bioship. Williams, the human engineer, had somehow connected every power source in the colony to create a magnetic launch system of enormous power. But Williams was still on the platform, riding it up toward the bioship. Williams, aboard, Chen commanded. You have done enough! Negative, Captain. William's voice was fading as the platform gained altitude. Someone needs to make sure this thing hits the right spot. Besides, I always wanted to see space. The mining platform struck the Devourer bioship with the force of a small asteroid. The bioship's living hull, designed to withstand energy weapons and conventional explosives, could not handle the kinetic impact of millions of tons of metal traveling at high velocity. The bioship began to break apart. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as internal systems failed. Pieces of the massive creature began falling toward the planet's surface like burning rain. Williams died in the impact, along with every creature aboard the bioship. But her sacrifice had just eliminated 10,000 Devourer reinforcements in a single moment. Williams confirm impact. Came the radio transmission from somewhere in orbit. Package delivered successfully. See you all in hell. The transmission cut off. Williams was gone, but the surviving humans immediately began using the falling debris from the bioship as cover for their next advance. Zekthai stared at the burning wreckage falling from the sky and finally understood what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. They did not just accept death as a possibility in war, they embraced it as the ultimate weapon. Commander, Varish asked quietly, what kind of beings are we fighting beside? Zekthai watched the humans singing their ancient battle hymns as they advanced through the flaming wreckage of their own victory. They had just killed thousands of enemies and several of their own people, and they seemed genuinely happy about it. I do not know, he admitted, but I pray to the ancestors that we never have to fight against them. The falling debris from the destroyed bioship created a hellscape across the colony. Burning pieces of organic hull plating crashed into buildings. Devourer creatures, some still alive, fell from the sky like deadly rain, the air filled with smoke and the smell of burning alien flesh. But the humans were not finished. As Zekthai watched in continued amazement, the surviving human soldiers began moving through the chaos like they were built for this kind of environment. They used the falling debris as cover, turned the burning wreckage into weapons, and hunted down every surviving devourer with methodical efficiency. Captain Chen appeared beside Zekthai's position again. Her armor was now completely destroyed on one side, showing burns from acid and fire. Blood ran down her face from multiple cuts. She should have been in medical care, but instead she was studying the battlefield through her simple binoculars. How many of your people are left? Zekthai asked. 14, Chen replied without emotion. Started with 42 this morning. Pretty good ratio, actually. Pretty good ratio. 28 dead soldiers was a good ratio to her. Zekthai tried to understand how any military commander could consider losing 2/3 of their force acceptable. The mission is complete, he said. The Devourer force has been eliminated. We should evacuate the survivors and call for medical support. Chen shook her head. Not done yet. We still have the main hive to clear. The main hive was destroyed when the bioship crashed. No, that was just the new construction. The original hive goes much deeper. My people can hear them moving around down there. Probably a few hundred survivors, maybe a breeding queen or two. Zekthai stared at her. Captain, you have 14 soldiers left. Your equipment is mostly destroyed. You are all injured. Even a few dozen devourers in their own tunnels would be suicide to attack. Probably, Chen agreed. But we can't leave them alive. Devourers adapt fast. If even one breeding queen survives, she'll remember everything that happened here. Next time they attack somewhere, they'll be ready for human tactics. Then we call for reinforcements. More ships, more soldiers, no time. The hive queens will start laying eggs tonight. By tomorrow, there could be thousands of new devourers. By next week, they could spread to other systems. Chen turned to look at him directly. Her eyes held the same cold calculation he had seen before. But now there was something else, a kind of terrible satisfaction. Commander, in human military doctrine, there is only one acceptable outcome to any conflict. Complete victory. Not negotiated peace, not tactical withdrawal, not acceptable losses. Complete victory means the enemy cannot threaten anyone ever again. That is impossible. No military force can guarantee complete victory. Human forces can, Chen said simply, because we are willing to pay prices that other species consider unacceptable. She activated her communication device. All remaining units, this is Overlord. Time for the final phase. Rodriguez, Patterson's replacement, Williams's backup, and the rest of you beautiful idiots, we are going underground. The voices that responded over the radio still sounded cheerful despite everything they had been through. These humans had watched their friends die in horrible ways, had nearly died themselves multiple times and were now preparing for what was certainly a suicide mission. And they were joking with each other. "You sure about this, Captain?" came Rodriguez's voice. "It's pretty dark down there." "Afraid of the dark, Rodriguez? Only when it's full of giant bugs that want to eat me." "That's why we brought lights," another human voice added. "Really bright lights." Chen smiled at this exchange. It was the first time Zekthai had seen her look truly happy since the battle began. "What kind of lights?" Zekthai asked suspiciously. "The mining colony had a small fusion reactor for processing operations," Chen explained. "My people have been working on it since last night. Turns out you can make a fusion reactor go critical if you know which safety systems to disable." Zekthai felt his scales go cold. "You are going to detonate a fusion reactor underground?" "Just a small one. Should be enough to sterilize about 50 cubic kilometers of tunnel system, plus it will seal all the entrances permanently. That will also kill everyone in the underground complex." "Yes, it will," Chen agreed. "But it will also guarantee that no devourers ever come out of those tunnels again." Zekthai watched the 14 surviving humans begin their descent into the tunnel system. They carried their simple weapons and what looked like pieces of the reactor's control systems. They were singing again, but this time it was a different song, something faster and more energetic. "What are they singing now?" he asked. Chen listened for a moment. "An old song from our homeworld. It's about dancing with death. Why do your people sing when they are about to die?" "Because dying in silence is sad," Chen replied. "Dying while singing means you go out on your own terms." The humans disappeared into the tunnel entrance. Zekthai could track their progress on his sensors as they moved deeper underground. But the readings became unclear as they went further down. Occasional radio transmissions gave hints about what was happening below. Sounds of weapons fire, explosions, human voices calling out tactical information or warnings to their companions, and always underneath everything else the sound of singing. "Contact, contact. Big one coming up Tunnel 7. Rodriguez, use the foam charges." "Foam charges deployed. Move, move, move." "Captain, we've reached the main breeding chamber. It's bigger than expected. Maybe 50 queens in here." "Copy. Set the package and get out." "Ma'am, the timer mechanism is damaged. Someone will need to stay behind to trigger it manually." There was a long pause before Chen responded. "Understood." "Who volunteers?" Every human voice responded at the same time. "I do." Chen laughed, and the sound echoed strangely through the radio. "I love you, idiots." "Martinez, you get the honor. Everyone else move to minimum safe distance." "Copy, Captain." "Martinez volunteering to babysit the big boom." "Make it count, Martinez. Always do, ma'am." "Tell my kids their daddy got the big ones." The radio transmission stopped. Zekthai waited, watching his sensors and listening for any sign of what was happening underground. His Valorian warriors had taken defensive positions around the tunnel entrances, but he knew there was nothing they could do to help. Minutes passed. Then Chen's voice came over the radio one last time. All units, this is Overlord. Package is armed and ready. We are at minimum safe distance. Martinez confirms detonation in 30 seconds. Captain, came Martinez's voice, distorted by distance and interference. It has been an honor serving with you crazy bastards. The honor was ours, Martinez. See you in hell. Save me a drink. The explosion came not as sound, but as vibration. The entire planet seemed to shake as the fusion reactor went critical deep underground. Zekthai felt the tremor through his feet, through his bones, through his soul. A column of superheated plasma erupted from every tunnel entrance simultaneously, reaching high into the atmosphere before dissipating. The ground above the hive complex collapsed, creating a crater nearly a kilometer wide. Steam and radiation vented from the hole for several minutes. When the shaking stopped, Zekthai's sensors showed no life signs from underground. The entire Devourer hive complex had been completely sterilized. Nothing could have survived the fusion blast, but the sensors also showed no human life signs. Captain Chen. Report. Zekthai transmitted. Silence. Any human units? Please respond. More silence. Zekthai felt something unexpected. A sense of loss. These insane humans had terrified him, confused him, and challenged everything he believed about warfare. But they had also saved his warriors and completed an impossible mission. Then faintly he heard something that made his heart skip a beat. Singing. Captain Chen, is that you? Present and accounted for, Commander. Came Chen's voice, weak but unmistakably alive. We managed to reach an old mining shaft that led back to the surface. Lost Martinez and 3 others, but the rest of us made it out. Zekthai felt relief flood through him. How many survivors? 10 humans still breathing, Chen reported. Mission complete. All hostile forces eliminated. Area secure. 10 humans out of 42. In Valorian military terms, this was a catastrophic loss rate that would result in court-martial for the commanding officer. But Chen sounded satisfied, even proud. Captain, I must ask, was this victory worth the cost? There was a pause before Chen answered. Commander, 32 of my people died today. But because of their sacrifice, the Devourers will never threaten another world from this system. They will never adapt to our tactics because there are no survivors to learn from our tactics. Complete victory. But the cost is what makes it meaningful, Chen said quietly. Anyone can win a battle where nobody dies. It takes something special to win a war where dying matters. Hours later, as the evacuation ships arrived to collect the survivors, Zekthai found himself standing with Captain Chen at the edge of the crater that had once been the Devourer hive. She was still singing very quietly some human song he did not recognize. Captain, I must know, are all humans like your people? Chen considered the question carefully. We're pretty typical, actually. Maybe a little more cheerful than average. Zekthai looked at the destroyed landscape, the burning wreckage, the crater that would probably glow with radiation for the next 1,000 years.